Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you for joining GovSchool, where we're going to be talking about today about how to respond to the RFP. We still have some folks in our room, so we'll get started here in maybe just one more minute. I would like to just give you some sort of the ground rules. First of all, the chat box today is not active, and so we will not have anybody monitoring the chat box. But please be aware of that for your own privacy reasons. I'll give you an opportunity to ask the questions at the end when we turn off the YouTube live, which is happening as well. So I'd like to make you aware of that for privacy reasons. So we've got a smaller group today. That's midsummer. Summer's just now getting started, and I think a lot of people are out there on vacation. But also didn't send that last minute reminder. That always helps out in drawing our crowds. But that's actually a good sign. So you're gonna have an opportunity to ask some questions as we go into it. And I'll tell you what, we'll go ahead and get started for those of you who are on time. So thank you for coming. Our primary objective today is to talk about how to respond to the RFP. This is a service of govdirections.com. Our primary objective is to help you not only learn to find the bid, but also step in and have success. And to do that, we spend time on teaching you how to actually respond to the RFP, how to read the RFP first, but then learning what's necessary to actually submit a winning proposal. And as part of that today, it will be a more experiential. I'll take a look at an actual RFP and walk you through that in the process of helping you. GovSchool is the service that we use to do that, to educate. And do thank you for coming today. If you are live on YouTube, note that chat box there is also not monitored. So we would like for you, if you have questions, feel free to pop into the actual live session today. Quickly, just a background why I actually do this kind of work, and so you know who's talking with you. And I think it's always helpful. But I am one of the founders of GovDirections. We've had this company in place now 24 years, so we enjoy what we do. Our team really works to help you better understand the entire process of government spending decisions, from the actual planning stages, the budgets, the referendums that are in place in our communities, to the point that actually ends up into an actual contract that you pursue. The staff includes 17 individuals now, serving just over, that should actually say 128,000 members, located in 70 countries. As a part of my work, I actually instruct the bids and contracting course at the University of Georgia, where I teach there how to actually write the RFP that you're responding to students. Basically, hopefully will end up as leaders in our communities, and it's a role I enjoy very much. It's certainly an honor. It's my alma mater, and I do that in the adjunct capacity. What I do in my normal day-to-day work is work with you to help you understand how to respond to an RFP so that you can go about winning that. So in this particular session, what I do is help you walk through the actual structure of a request for proposal. What are you actually looking at? What is a RFP? I'll walk you through each section, and then I'll explain the importance of that. We will use an actual RFP as an example. I'm a big believer in experiential learning. That means you learn by doing, okay? And I'm gonna drive you through that. And I actually will start a response to help you understand how to do that. And I promised you today, last time we talked in the first part of June, gave you really what's the most powerful words I believe you can use in an RFP. And if you remember, those words are for example, okay? Given some examples. Anytime you have an opportunity to give an example, you will find yourself above your competition and helping you in that process of winning. And so today, what I want to do is actually help you understand things you shouldn't do. The most powerful thing you shouldn't do. You don't want to be in that filing cabinet that sits next to everybody's desk, commonly known as a wastebasket too. We don't want to end up there. We want to win on the top of the pile. Okay, and so I'm going to share with you what I think is probably what you should avoid to actually end up there. Okay, and I always like to start off with this slide, just as a reminder. It's supposed to be hard. Okay, if it were easy, everyone would do it. You're here today on a Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock with a purpose. Okay, and that's to go about learning how to win a contract. You're taking the time. If everybody could do it, they would. They can't. They got to really get in there and study and do what's necessary to win. And this is a quote from Tom Hanks. It's about a softball team, and everybody thinks they play softball. When you get out there, you want to be the best. You got to practice. Practice is hard, and so I always drive that in. Okay, and also whenever we're working with government, I like to talk. This is terminology. A lot of times it's Greek to a lot of us when we first start. The RFP. I use that terminology, request for proposal, generically. Okay, everything I talk about really is any contracting instrument that a government uses to work with you as a private company. It's the whole theory of the firm. You have a service, you have a supply that you want to offer to these governments, and they need you. Okay, and it's cost effective for them to do that. It's better for them to contract it out than to try to do it in house. And we have a strong philosophy in the United States specifically to do that often and as much as we possibly can. Engage the private sector in government contract, and so they can to enhance our serviceability. And so what you oftentimes will see is other types of instruments that get your attention. One is the common RFI, request for information, request for qualifications, maybe an engineer, an architect, you got certifications of some sort in your business. Okay, those are your RFQs. Your sources sought. Okay, this is when they're just looking to see if there's even a marketplace. Oftentimes they'll use this to help them define whether or not there's a small business marketplace. Specifically at the federal government level, or sometimes looking into some of the set-aside provisions. Are there actually service-disabled businesses who can provide the services before we go out and set it up in a set-aside just for that group? They want to know if that's there first. And sometimes it's even very unique. I know oftentimes in places that are more remote, they'll go out and say, I'm looking for this type of service, but is there anybody in the community can provide it before we do that? Or do we have to broaden that out to a larger base? The invitation to quote, simple. They're just looking for you to quote. I was working with somebody this morning. You can try to overcomplicate it. You don't need everything, all these other items that I'm talking about today. Sometimes in the invitation to quote, you can just submit the quote, be done with it, move on. They're very structured, very precise, and they're making a quick decision. Sometimes these are even done over the phone, and this is those oftentimes referred to as micro purchases, and showing you how to make sure you qualify for those and you learn about those. And so it's important. And then the invitation to bid, a little bit more complex than the invitation to quote. They're more specific, though. The graduate class, I require them to prepare an actual invitation, a request for proposal, or invitation to bid is one of their assignments. And oftentimes, just this past semester, I had somebody do a vehicle, something that you would think would be very easy. Ended up being close to 100 pages for the actual document itself that you had to respond to. Sometimes but very structured. And all you usually do there is your quotes. And then my favorite, and what I usually respond to, is the request for proposal. And you say, why is it your favorite, Mark? And the reason why it is because this is the document that lets you shine as somebody who has got some knowledge about a topic. You've earned that knowledge. You learned, and it's taking you your career to develop that expertise. And the government wants to know about that. And so it's there, and they ask you a lot of questions. And so there, oftentimes they're giving you page limitations and say, hey, it's there for you, and understanding that you're to take that opportunity, we'll tell about your company, and they will structure it in a lot of different ways that it's there. Okay. And I always just like to go back to really the pure definition of what is an RFP, because and any of the documents that I really kind of just talked about there, just to remind you, it's a solicitation. Okay, that means that they're actively looking for you to respond. They're looking for an engagement with the marketplace, and it's not a done deal. A lot of times I hear that. Isn't this a done deal, Mark? I said, no. If you're seeing an RFP and they've got it on the street, they went through an elaborate decision-making process to get to this point. They want competition, and usually through a bidding process where they're engaging you against others, and they're comparing you based on some factors. They'll tell you what that, not always price, not always money. Sometimes it's other parts, such as your knowledge levels, your ability to understand what they're looking for and details like that by any agency or company who's interested in procuring with you to buy your services. And I like to point that out because you're not wasting time. You look at these documents, it's going to happen. Somebody's going to win that project on or about that date that it's told to you in that actual RFP or that document. And so understand that. And I'd like to point out that they consider this a value of some sort. It's a valuable service or an asset they're acquiring. They've put a lot of time and effort to it. A lot of people have been engaged in this task to actually bring something to fruition. So they want you to take it seriously as well. And when you submit a proposal, it should be in a business-like way, and you have structure to it, and they want you to take it seriously. As I point out, a lot of times the RFP can take months and months to actually draft by most agencies, have a number of people involved in it. And so they want you to understand that value and to respond appropriately. So that's the pure definition of RFP, and to make sure that you know that as you step into this. And when you look at one or any of these other contracting instruments, what you typically find are some similar parts, that are set up. First, the statement of work, and the most important part. And so I'll jump ahead into one slide because this part here, whenever I read, that's the first thing I look for in a document. Sometimes it's very clear up front when I teach folks how to write these. Once you're responding to, I say, hey, put that up front and center. That's what they're looking for. They want to make sure they're a good match to you, especially when folks now are more using AI and other ways, the methods to actually go in and search and pinpoint. You got to have the right keywords. It's got to be a succinct statement that really means something to you. But it needs to do this one thing, and it's simple. It's that old Coldplay song. I listened to almost every other day. It seems like it needs to be singing that song in the back of your head. You're the one that I wanted to find. Okay, and if it doesn't sing that in the back of your head, when you first read that scope of work, you just need to move on. Okay, it's a $7.2 trillion marketplace. It's a big marketplace. Governments are buying. It's the largest spending period in American history. Local and state governments this coming year are flush. They have more money going toward projects than any time. Almost, I think, close to 10% bigger than any other period. And they're hiring this year. They're buying this year. So know that going to. There's going to be opportunity for you. If that statement of work doesn't fit you, then move on. And don't make yourself fit the statement of work. Okay, the statement of work should fit you, and that's important. And you do that as you step into it. You pass that first test. It's sung that song. You hear in the song, playing. You can't get it out of your head now. There you start looking into the technical specs. Okay, here the government's going to tell you what they're hoping for. Here you don't have to match 100%. Okay, so you match to a high degree of percentage. And oftentimes this is where you start looking at other parts that you might want to bring in. Somebody else who can help you with projects. Somebody else who's got another specialty. Because the governments oftentimes they'll ask for a lot of things. They want all these things, and then they can't quite get it from the same person, okay, or same group. And you build relationships, subcontracts, and you go in there. Okay, so that's important. But you have a high degree, and this is where they sort of match you. And you should have in your repository details, methods and deliverables of how you're actually going to respond to these texts, okay, that they're looking for. Then you go find a schedule. There's two parts of the schedule. One is the part where they're going to tell you how to respond. Okay, here's what you got to do. You're going to pay attention. Honestly, I was working with a client the other day and I missed something big, and I'm not sure how I misunderstood something. The language wasn't so clear on this particular RFP, but a date. And luckily, the government worked with us because others had a similar situation. But that schedule is so important. You don't want to have it messed up. So know when the pre-bid meeting is. Know when every step of the way is, including when they're going to make this actual selection. But for goodness sake, make sure you don't miss the actual deadline to get the bid back in. And know that this RFP could change over time. This due date, all the dates could change. So there could be some amendments, and you got to watch for those. Okay, and take the schedule. And so understand that work expands really to fill the time available for its completion. So when you're responding to an RFP, give yourself the time that it requires, and then be ready though to go in a quick way or take time a little bit longer if they give it to you. And then the other side of the schedule is the work that you got to do and how they're going to work, how they're going to ask you to do the work. Sometimes they want you to do in a standard process, like the consulting work I do typically takes about 6 months to do. And I'll have a fair price at that part, but I could do it in 3 months, but they're going to have to pay a premium. Okay, so that'll drive that schedule will not only drive your pricing, but also will drive how you'll get paid. And that's, I think a lot of us want to know that right up front. Okay. And so it'll tell you that and help you with that process. And then understand the list of deliverables. What are they actually wanting from you? And when are they wanting that? Okay. As a part of that schedule. And they'll list those for you in any RFP. And a typical bid is, drop ship, send it to us on this particular date. Got 90 days. We're going to pay you within 30. Okay. That's more straightforward. In an RFP, oftentimes say, hey, this is a consulting project. We're going to pay you so much up front. We're going to pay you maybe midway. And then once you deliver the final report, we're going to pay you at the end, whatever it is. Okay, the final product, that deliverable will drive your pricing and your profit. So make sure you pay attention to it. Contract terms and conditions, though, is really where your profit's at. Okay, this is going to help you understand how things are resolved. What are really truly expected of you? What sort of qualifications are going to be on top of that? The insurance requirements, things like this. Okay. Also, forbearance. What's going to happen when things go wrong? Because they do go wrong, and you need to figure out how you're going to solve that when you get to that point. So this is where your true profit center is at. So pay attention to the terms and conditions. It's important that you do that. In addition, understand that governments typically don't change the terms and conditions. Okay, so that's why you got to be able to live with them. But during that Q&A session that you have usually with most contracts or RFPs, then you can ask them potentially if they can expand on that or limit it or parts of it that you can't just quite live with. Okay, that's when you ask, not when you actually win. Okay, and the format of the proposal, good. That's the best part of an RFP or working with government. They literally tell you what they want you to do. So take that into consideration. In fact, don't do anything else. Just do what they ask you. That's how you win. The number one thing I get, how do I win a bid, Mark? It's not price. That sometimes it is price. Okay, true. Okay, but overwhelmingly, it's because you follow the instructions. Okay, and that's what they're asking you to do. Most people who fail is they really don't follow the instructions. So that's my first things not to do. The first thing not to do is do not skip an instruction. Okay, pay attention to them and make sure you check off. I do a checklist. I can potentially show every time I take a look at an RFP. Lay it out, and everything they're asking for, I put it on a checklist. This is beyond their checklist. Now, they'll give you a checklist, maybe a list of form here and a form there. My checklist includes everything they ask for, inclusive of items like what's required in order to in your discussion about your executive summary. What are they looking for? And they're looking for your qualifications. What are they specifically looking for? If there's one line, small item in there, I'm putting it on my checklist to make sure that I have discussed that. Everything should be discussed. Leave nothing to doubt. Okay. If you can't address something, tell them you can't address it. It's important that they understand that going into it. Okay. So that formatted proposal is laid out. Pay attention to it. Your qualifications and experience here, they're going to tell you what they want. Now, if you ever have tried to hire somebody, you know what you're looking for. Honestly, it's very rare that you get it. Okay. So don't just walk away from an RFP simply because you don't meet all the qualifications or all the experience. Oftentimes governments get so strict on this, they end up not having anybody respond. And, then they just take what they get. And so it's important that you understand that going into it. And so try to match up to the qualifications experience at a high degree. Maybe I would say if I'm a C on that, I can get in the door. Okay. But you always want to get the B or the A, and that's what you're aiming for. Okay, but you don't always get it. Okay, so sometimes you have to settle, and that they'll do that. So qualifications experience is there. Pay attention to that. The cost breakdown. Understand what your cost is to do your business. The other big questions I get. The first one I always get is, how do I win? The second one is what do I price it at, Mark? Well, you should know what your price is to do your business. Okay, that's the first step. Got to make money. Okay, now you're not in this business to lose money. Okay, so first find out what it costs to do your work, and then to make profit. If you're a lot of times I get the middleman question. I got a subcontractor. How much should I add to that? I always start off with, what do you think? I don't know. It's for usually I think on average probably talking about 20%. 10%, 20, almost like you were building a house, and the contractor at risk is going to tap onto it 20% usually. But you want to negotiate that down. The government was trying to negotiate it down. That's where you bid at. Other times, if it's a very small universe and they got very little competition, and that, well, go up to that 50% mark. Okay, you kind of know where you need to be at. Play that same way in when you're comparatively looking at your pricing. In fact, nowadays, I've been doing this I've been probably 30 years, and I've won on about 400 contracts in 34 states. So I've got some staying power, as you might say. When I first started, I had to bid in the 25 percentile. Okay, it took me 7 months to get my first contract. And so it was in Vermont, and I'm from Georgia, and I never really worked up that area before. But I was able to build in some sort of relationship factor, but also went in there at a very good competitive cost. And I could do the work, that was no doubt. But I had to get to a very competitive cost in order to get that contract. That was 25% of the market. And it's not 25% of the cost; it's 25% of whatever in a quartile of whatever else is bidding. So if we got 10 companies bidding, and I'm bidding in the bottom range with about 3 or 4 of those other companies. Okay, so making sense. So you learn your quartiles and how that all works. Now I never bid below 75th percentile. So I'm always at top because every time when we look at what's next is the evaluation criteria. Our governments are always looking at other parts of in evaluation. So it's not just cost. Cost got me in the door earlier, but then I had to get experience levels and other things I didn't get very high on. So nowadays I get very high on experience and methods, and I've got some good references, so I don't have to get all those points on my cost. Okay, making sense. So learn what those evaluation criteria is. Pay attention to that as a part of your cost breakdown, inclusive of information about your qualifications and experience, as well as your list of your deliverables that you're actually doing. So it's a combination of your work, your methods, your price, and your experience in this whole process. Paying attention to those typical parts. And you see those parts in almost every RFP when you're looking at it. In fact, now I sort of break all mine down that way. And as I leave this slide, you're the one that I wanted to find. Don't waste your time on bids or RFPs that don't match you. Don't fit you. Don't try to fit. Okay. One way to know that is your capabilities and your capability statement that you define yourself. Okay. And so take some time in making sure. Now, the federal government's going to require you to actually have a capability statement whenever you bid on just about every project. And so they define what's in those. Your core competency, your codes that you attach to you. When that federal governments use different codes than local and state governments, but the code's the reason why they want it in your capability statement, because a lot of time that's driven, and in fact is always driven specifically to set-aside provisions. Okay, and they want to use certifications for those set-aside. So codes, certifications, competencies. I have a great team of folks who can help you with these things. Dr. Cynthia Harper is one of my favorite, and she helps clients routinely with these. But then also your executive mission, your differentiators. Why should they really hire you at the end? And then the most important, I think, of all of it, your contact data, and make sure it stays up current. Okay. And for goodness sakes, another thing you don't do is put a number in your documents for them to call that goes to a voicemail that's not set up. Okay. Or it's full. That literally you go right to the bottom of the pile. Okay. And right straight over to the trash can. They don't want to mess with you. If you can't manage your business, how do you go manage their business? Okay, so make sure you get a good contact data. That's something that's very important. Okay, some tips. Okay, first, read the entire RFP. Take it out, dissect it, take a look at it. Okay, when you first start out, get to that statement of work first, and then if they pass that first test, you're the one I wanted to find. Move to the rest of it. Read it all at once. See what you're really looking at. Pay attention to things like is there a notary requirement? Gosh, worst thing I hate is when I get caught with that requirement and I've only got hours left and I realize I got to have a notary. And I don't, it's not something you want to do. You want to check off those things that are going to take some a little bit of time. So read all the way through, see what's there. Okay. Pay attention to all of those steps that I just talked about. Set it aside and really think about it. Okay. Make sure it's a good fit. You don't need to be going after business that you're not going to be happy with after you get it. Okay. Because everything you go into, you should go into with the understanding you're going to win it. Okay. And when you win it, are you going to be able to fulfill it? Okay. Make sure it's a good fit. Talk to your colleagues. If you're not a good fit, figure out how maybe, if that scope worked yet, maybe there's parts of it that you want to add to it. You want to bring in somebody. I often bring in folks who do like a salary survey part and use a different system, somebody else for that. Or I might use somebody else to write items that I do. I do compensation classification type work. It's a little bit different. So I bring others in to my response back. okay, and understand that. And then complete the proposal all at one setting to really kind of do that. I usually get up at a 4 a.m. site and write my RFP responses until about 8 a.m. and then stop, and then think about it. Then go back and read it all the way through and fill in the blanks, that you've left. Make some notes for you. You got that checklist that you started really when I started that checklist up in this stage here. And then when I actually wrote it, I went back and made sure everything's checked off. And then and then I submit it. Okay. But hold on that submission until the time that's available till it's due. Okay. And take that work time. Okay. It expands. If you got 2 weeks to do it, take 2 weeks to do it. If you got 2 days to do it, be prepared to do it in 2 days. Okay. And you will find yourself with better products in both situations. Do it. Work expands. Okay. Just understand that's Parkinson's law. And always organize. I use tools that are sometimes, one of my favorite, if you're going to spend a little money, Bundy.com is a great tool, keeps it all organized, but a project management tool that helps you know when your dates are due, things like that. You can put it all in there. I find that Google Drive is perfect. It's a free system. We set these up for our members frequently, okay, and help them with that. As you're going through that, develop indicators of success. Okay? This saves you time at the end of the day, okay? So you don't go after bids that don't meet you. I was just talking to somebody, and I was just saying, one of my indicators, frankly, what I'm doing is that the bid has to be in one of 3 states that I pursue. It's got to be in Wyoming, South Dakota, or North Dakota. Yeah, you might say, why do you do that, Mark? I like working there. It's something I enjoy my work now, and I'm at a point in my life, and I just turned 60, so I've got some state. I've been around, and so I want to enjoy my work that I go in there, and I want to be really the second part of that, maybe within about 30 minutes of a good fishing stream. So I want to save some time. These are indicators that I look for in my work. And it may be different than yours. When you first start out, I didn't really care where it was at. I wanted to work, and that was important. And so I did a lot of those over time. That's how I got to that big mark of 400. And so, but now I've slowed down. And so those indicators have to be key. So when I'm looking for specific indicators. It's not always just tailored to business. It's tailored to your work style, your work life balance, things of that nature, and understand that going into it and look for those. But sometimes it's a population size. I only work with governments between about 10,000 and 50,000 population where they're at. And then I also want to have maybe less than 250 employees. So these are items that I probably have about 14 steps that I'm checking off. Okay. It saves me time. I don't mess with ones that don't fit that. Okay. As I go through it. Make sure you got your templates in place. You'll find the same thing over and over again. So prepare those templates. When you prepare one, and when we set up our system that we work with our customers in the process, the template's not developed at first. I don't have a template I give people right now. I know there's a lot of times they'll sell it and you go to something like ChatGPT. Oh, stop. That's one of those things I'm going to tell you not do. Don't do. Don't take an AI tool to develop your RFP. It doesn't. You look and feel like everybody else. That's not what they want. Okay, they want your response. Now, it's not that you can't take shortcuts. Sure, take shortcuts, but step back, and oftentimes I'll see the same bolded parts over and over again. I see a lot of essays whenever in my classes I teach, but and they forget to even change the bolding. It's the same bold. If we put the same RFP into a chat system, it's going to give you the same results as everybody else. So just know that going into it. So don't do that. Don't use prepared templates that don't really match your company. They don't really speak to who you are. Because the government didn't do that. The government really took some time to develop this, and they want you to take the same response. Now, that's not the same as, you need some help with some absurd, something that's just out there, arcane little request that they have, and you need some help with that. I used it the other day for something. That's perfectly fine, but don't do it for the overall RFP. Okay, that's another don't do thing. Always update. Okay, stay on top of the game. Keep your system. Understand there are tools that help you and use them in an effective way. But stay on top of the game, okay? And that's important. This is how you go about organizing your information. You can learn more about. Though I've talked about it, this experiential process that we work with. It is online, but experiential. You can do it yourself. Okay, it's not that you have to specifically hire us to do it. You can do it yourself. Learn by doing. Take an actual RFP, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 of them, lay them out together, see what you're looking at. Focus in on things that you know first. Set those aside. That becomes the items that you don't have to worry about. Then focus on the things you don't know. Okay. Learn a little bit, if you're in construction or in the business that requires bonds, understand how to get a bid bond, understand how to get a performance bond. What's it going to cost you? What about insurance? What's the typical insurance requirement? If you know these things, that's great. If you don't know them, then you need to know them, okay? And get that out there. Understand what your e-verify requirements are and how to get your e-verify, things of this nature, okay? Lay those out. And then so just know that those are always there for you. And as always, I always just skip through it. The only source of knowledge really is experience. So stepping into it and taking an actual RFP is always what I like to try to do. Okay, so let's take a look. First, here's RFP delivery. I'll start off here by your capability statement, kind of just go there, but that is so important. Make sure you have that in place. Come in here and then find a particular bid for you. Okay, I'm going to stay on here. I'm not sure if the person I was talking with earlier is still on here, but we put out one that's just about a website, but you can come in our system and search, Google, just basically, a Boolean search technique. It's still the way we would search a SQL database is some 6 million records. So it has to go through in a right way to find the bids that match you. But you use a conjunction or, an and, or is expansive, and is limiting, and not is restrictive. Okay, so you can find those. But if I was wanting to look at website, that's going to actually be too big. So let me just go back in website development, go in there and search, and then you would find those bids that are potentially that can be matches. Those words appear. Those words have to appear together in the way we approach that. Okay, we're always going to tell you the location, the due that date is there, and then the local, whether or not state and local or federal. Okay, and so these are all state and local here. You will find on average about 20 contracts available at the state and local level for every one federal contract. Okay, and it's just because there's more of them. Okay, it's just a lot more. Unless you're in the defense. If you're in the defense contracting part of it, then you will find that that there's certainly a lot more at defense being at the federal level. That's most of the items being purchased by government in the United States. But these are real live local government projects, local, state, and both U.S. and Canada. We actually have bids in some 74 countries, so 72 countries, I think it is. So if you go in, you step in your home site, you can always go back to your main pad, the dashboard, to make sure you monitor, okay, your alerts, and your captured bids. These are ones you're working. The Gov Advice, where we work with you, and Gov School, where we teach. You can go on Gov Directions YouTube and see all of those YouTube live sessions. Thanks for all those who are there now and checking us out a little bit later. Over on the left-hand side, you'll find your filters. And so if I was actually doing website development, I didn't want to do that keyword search over here on the right, which is more global, okay? So that if I was doing the website development, I would do here, it would show me bids in every single state, okay? And I did that search. Then if it was something I like, I could actually save that search right here, save the word search, okay? Where there's those 4 bids. Now, in this particular case here, I'm actually going to be more isolated. I want to look at more bids, and I'm going to look at potentially IT website development. Okay. Now, if I want to go in and actually, when I'm finding a bid, if I want to limit the location, I can. Most times these days, you can do your work just about anywhere. So cast a wide net, start off with. Or if I'm looking at for a federal bid only, then I can add in a federal qualifier. And if that's the case, I'm ruling out my state and local. So maybe I'm just looking just for woman-owned small business. Okay, then I can slide that over and run it, or in a particular NAICS scope, I could do that. Yeah, just know that that rules out your local and state government. I like to work in local and state government, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to run my filter, and when I run it, if I save it, it's going to be here always, all of my filters that I'm working. Okay, so I come in here, I'll save that filter. It'll actually will apply it at the same time. As I step in here, it's going to show me these bids that are available. So here's the Park and Recreation website design, Illinois. Yeah, that one looked good. Stepping into it, all there. Let's go see if we can find one. I don't know if this is the one I looked at earlier, but let's go look. Okay. So here it is. It's in Elgin, Illinois. It was the one. Okay. Location, bid number, you call. Sometimes it's individualized. Most local governments are small enough office that you just call in there, they're going to help you. Okay. It's not anything too complicated, and they generally do. Know that these bids, though, at this point, they're in a cone of silence. So you can't just call up there and start talking to them about the RFP. Can't do that. There's rules. Okay, so follow the rules. You want to open up the RFP. Before I do that, though, I'm going to capture it. Okay, and when I capture it, it saves it in my capture folder. That way, I don't lose it, because there's 5,000 bids a day issued. It's 1.5. It's a lot of bids. Okay, so you don't want to miss that. About 1.5 million a year, about 100,000 plus on lot. Okay, so it's a lot of activity. And this year is going to be, I keep saying this because I want you to understand it's going to be the largest spending period in American history. Okay. This is the year, if you're in government contracting, to really secure your future. It really is. This is the time. External link. Okay. Go in there. You go in actually to the RFP. At this point, you leave us. You're actually with the government. They want to do business with you. You end up here, and there actually is a third-party provider who might suggest you have to pay or register. You typically do have to register, but you don't have to pay. Every state now requires local government specifically to give you access to the information at no charge. So you'll see a free option. Always choose the free option. There's just no reason to pay for this kind of access to information. You click on here, the bid actually opens up. It's there for you to actually start your response back. Okay. So what's the first thing we're going to do? Okay, we're going to go and look for the scope of work. A lot of times it's not just set aside, it's a small or medium-sized government. They may not have a section for scope of work, and sometimes they do. So we'll step in here. It's an introduction. They tell you a little bit about the community. I'm gonna start paying attention to those indicators of success. One is that the population size for me would fit. Okay, it's also I'm going to start looking at the schedule. This one's not in my 3 states, so I've already ruled it out. I'm not going to work here at this point. It might have been early on. I might have went there, but not in that manner. But I also don't do website development. Okay, they want a website and mobile app. Okay, going into it to see the schedule, how it broke it down. I'm going to actually start my potentially my checklist. Okay, and the items that I want to do. Okay. So I'm going to have in my system, this is something that's caught my eye. Let's pretend I'm going to jump ahead. Here's that scope. Okay. They want website. They want a new website. That's the scope. Okay. Yeah, I'll do this. So yes, I'm interested. So here I got my sample folder. What you're looking at here is my drive where I work with members routinely. Okay. And we set it up for each of them. So I have a sample folder set up for the RFP process. Here's my client files, and I have my logo ready to go. Okay, remember that? The logo, transparent background. That's my Eagle. I've been using it since 2006, and I like that logo. Okay, we're going in. I've got a client file drop where I keep everything. This is my Dropbox. Okay, got my capability statement ready to go. I'm gonna slide it in just about every single RFP I send response back to. Okay, and so I've got it ready to go. It's always in my client file box. And then I've got my templates ready. I got my cover sheet potentially. Okay. And I'm always able to just take that and then run with it. And I've covered a copy it over. I'm just going to copy it so I can just open it up in another. I got the whole setup. Okay. So when I go in, I'm going to actually go into my in my folder. I'm going to set up my RFP process. I'm going to have some components all ready to go. Okay. I'm going to have my executive summary. I'm going to have my qualifications. I'm going to have my methods and deliverables, how I do things, this particular case here, it might be just the type of server I use, my relationship with organizations like maybe Amazon Web Services, things like that, whatever. I'm not truly a technology guy. Certifications I might have in specific languages, things like that. My forms, my performance of forms, like the E-Verify form, your W-9, things like that. Performance, examples of my work, ready to go. Okay. Primary areas built around those factors that we typically find within an RFP that we're looking for. Okay, so these are the items you'll find it within the actual document. As I'm working RFP, so it's really 5 stages. I have 4 on here, but the 5th stage, the very first stage is they're thinking about doing something. Okay, it's pre-active. It's really in a typical traditional business development mode. So you've learned maybe in the city council meeting that they're thinking about doing this new website, and you go in there and you approach them and you actually share with them information about your company. You can actually just truly call. You're not in a cone of silence. You're not in any sort of limitations. So you can actually get in there and market your company. Frankly, you might even have an RFP that's drafted and ready to go where they can hire you from it. Okay. And that's a good strategic marketing. I have a sample RFP to hire me. And that's, you go in, it's important that they have that available. Okay. People like the shortcuts, the way we all like to use ChatGPT or something. You really enjoy that part because it saves you a lot of time. It's just the same with them. So that's why you might oftentimes see an RFP thinking, this looks like it was written by my competitor. Well, it might have been. Okay. So it. So You go in there. So that's why you want to have those ready to go. Give them sections. So you help them understand what they have to ask for to actually draft it, to actually do a website. Okay. Once it gets to an active stage, at the active stage, then you get into that cone of silence. There's a due date. Okay. So in like this particular situation here, this is the city of Elgin. What was that due date? Let's go back in here. I think it was July the 20 proposal, July 16th. Okay. So I'm going to set myself up a folder. I'm going to go in. I'm going to do new folder, Elgin, July. I've already forgot the date. Short-term memory. So let's say July 14th. We'll just keep it there. Okay. Go in there. Okay. Now in this folder here, I'm going to do everything that's related to this bid, including dropping in the actual documents. So I have them in one location. Any addendums. Okay. I'm not going to do that right now as we speak, but I'm going to move on in. The next thing I do is I step in and I create myself. First, I'm going to create myself a response document. Anything I do with this response is going to be on it, okay? Including initially my cover sheet. Drop that cover sheet in there. Drop in my logo, okay? I'm going to have it ready to go. Everything's ready to go, okay? Okay, I'm going to drop in my date. It is the July 14th. Everything's going to be built around that date. Okay, I'm going to eventually learn who the others are, information. So already I've got myself working. Okay, I'm going to actually build in a linear address, and I'll have my address here at the bottom. I always like to go in and add in just a quick horizontal line, okay, that separates things so that I can show the difference between the two and keep it all centered on the address. Small things like that make a difference. So have these ready to go. Okay. And then every time I start a new area, I just start a new section. Okay. Insert section. These are tools that are freely available to you. Let's see here. Insert. If you learn how to use them, Mark. Okay. There we go. I was on the wrong part. Insert. Break. Section break. Okay. And that's going to keep my different styles there for it. Style is very important. It's a great book, Elements of Style. If you don't have that, you probably should have it on your desktop. Okay, you can go to Amazon and look that up. Elements of Style, Shrunken White. Kind of helps you in your writing. Okay, it's important that you have that. The second thing I'm going to do here, okay, I'm going to create new Google Doc. I'm going to create myself a checklist. And I'm going to start myself a little table. Two things. One, this side, I'll put action on it. Status. Okay. And here, I'm going to put in, insert. I'm going to put myself a drop down. New drop down. And I'm going to call this action status. Work in progress. Open. Complete. And frankly, I got this mixed up just a little bit. Okay, I'll put my open first. Okay, make this red. Make this one blue, and green is money. There we go. Okay, save that. Start putting my items in here. Okay, first thing I got to do, back to that document. Okay, I'm gonna put my calendar on it. Okay, there's no pre-bid meeting. Doesn't look like pre-proposal. That's the first thing I'm gonna look for. Doesn't look like there is one. Okay. Your proposal's got to have these. Okay. I'm gonna see if I can copy this. Sometimes they limit your ability to copy from the web. Okay. There it is. Okay. I'm gonna actually put it inside my proposal as well as all my checklists. Okay. See where I'm going here? Okay. List them all up there. This way I don't forget anything. Undo things. That's important. If you ever accidentally delete, I love Google. You can just recall it. It's not a problem. Okay. Remember those days when you do something, you spend hours and hours, and all of a sudden you just disappear, and oh my goodness, it's just terrible. I don't know why. I should be able to tab that. There it is. Okay. And you saw that last line I just deleted. Is any other information you may want to give them? I was talking to somebody earlier today, and it's like, I was in a room on the internet, and they said, give them, overkill them, give them everything you can think of. I'm not really of that mindset. I think you should be precise what they're looking for. If they do give you that offer, which they just do here, you may want to take it to give them a little bit more information, but I wouldn't just give them everything in the kitchen sink. It doesn't make any sense. They're not going to measure. Look at what they're actually going to measure you on, and then focus it on that. Okay. But those are key items you must contain. Okay. Must is a serious word. That means if it's not in there, you're going to be thrown out. Okay. So here's my introduction. Here's my timeline. Okay. Here's their mission. Here's their vision. Here's what they're really trying to do, the website itself. Okay. As I step in here, they're giving me a lot of detail about what I'm going to pay attention to those words. I'm going to try to incorporate those words into my actual responses. Sometimes I actually step out and copy all of this detail and then build that into my response to make sure I've covered all that. Okay. As I go in here, they're telling me that as I go in here, is evaluation criteria. It becomes very important. Okay. Here's how you get an A. Okay. Focus. Okay. If it's not on this list, it doesn't count towards your A. Okay. Don't focus on that. Focus on this. Okay? What's your experience with parks and recreation section? So here, I'm actually going to go in my checklist, and near the end of it, and I don't know why it's not tabbing over. I'm sorry, but I'll list those, and it should give me some more on things, but I'll list each one of these items, okay, and use those. There it is. And make sure that I completed this, that I spoke to this. Okay, add this to your checklist, because this is how they're going to grade me. Okay, I discussed experience and expertise. Okay, and I get this, and when I do that, I'm going to say I'm completed it. So I'm happy that I got what I need in there. And if I need to change it, then I'll change it. Okay, so when you build your checklist, add in how you're going to evaluate you. That's going to be it's going to be more helpful. And not to-do list, things you don't want to do. Don't worry about the things that are on the list. Yeah, this is how they're going to measure you. Okay, if you spend all the time talking about something that's not on this list, then you're going to get yourself thrown out. Okay, it just doesn't do you any good. How are they going to do it? This has to be submitted by email. Okay, that's important. If it has to be sent by an actual document, okay, and marked on the envelope, then you got to make sure you put those down there correctly. Okay, but see, even here, they're telling you it's got to be submitted by email. Then they're telling you have to send it by envelope. That's still kind of anger language, and so it's there. But here's how they're telling you what they want. Part A, narrative. Okay. Part B, fee. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this over to my response. I'm gonna build my response back on this. Now, whenever I actually draft the response, I'm gonna put these up front. Okay, I'm gonna fill them out, and I'm gonna put them up front and center, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and then I'm gonna do my narrative, unless they tell me to do a different way. I don't think they did. Okay, so get there. But here's my narrative. This is where I start my executive summary. And when I do this, I'm most likely going to go in after my letter here. I'm going to actually go in. I'm going to break it. I'm going to put me another section break here. Okay. And then I'm going to put my cover sheet. Insert. Let's go back into the document folder. And I'm going to pull it out very quickly. RFPs of interest, RFPs process, sample folder, RFP templates, my cover sheet. All ready to go. Drop that in. And my response. Okay. Thought I copied that. There we go. Come here. I'm gonna fill that details in. I'm gonna actually stop me another break. Actually, I already have that section break there, okay, right here. And then I'm gonna put me in a table of contents. It's a professional document. Give them a table to help them, okay? And this is going to keep you as a part of your building. You're going to actually, you're going to find that this is helpful. Kind of, it's a motivating factor, okay? What I like to do is go ahead and put it in there, call it table of contents, okay? And then this might become each page, okay? And then I go ahead and just give it a title, normal text, title 2, okay? It's my big documents, okay? And I start coming in, and I'll call that the first one, okay? Signed, and then I'm gonna build my table. You come back up, do like that, it'll start building it for you, so you don't miss something, okay? And so you use I find using the Google headings part is very important, okay? In the part narrative, and as you remember, the most powerful words, for example, right? Anytime you go in here, a qualification of the firm, you might list your qualifications that you've done some other work, and you say, for example, I've done 10 different websites in Illinois that has this, whatever you can do, okay? Or, for example, in my prior work, I know I'm somewhat new to this field, or maybe I don't say that. There's another thing you don't do, okay? Don't go in there and call attention to your negatives, okay? Don't do it. It doesn't do you any good, okay? Build in a positive way, okay? In some way, and play around with your words. This is where you can use AI. Even use Gemini over here on the top, how to write, clean it up a little bit, okay? And how you say something, type in there what you want to say, and then maybe use that to wordsmith it a little bit. I don't know why they didn't call it wordsmith instead of Gemini, because that's what it does, basically. Okay? And we go in here, and you go step by step, and put all the information, okay? And your fee structure, if it's separated, make sure you got it in a separate document. It says here, shall be separate, okay? Oftentimes it's in another folder, another document. Pay attention to that. Okay. So here we are at 4:53. I have done a lot of talking. Okay. And I've shown you kind of how to lay these things out. I want to encourage you to use some of these tools and watch these videos and learn. It should be experiential. And I've tried to walk through and accomplish some objectives with you today. We started a response. I showed you an actual RFP. We walked through each section, and I've tried to identify the structure of an actual request for proposal, so you're not, it's not foreign to you. I like to take the mystery out of this work, okay? And so I want to thank you for coming. I am going to shut off the YouTube Lives portion, and for those of you who joined us on YouTube Live, thank you very much for coming today, and we appreciate your interest in our service. Please reach out. We're available at 800-492-8523, and you'll find a receptive organization is ready to help you and work with you. Now, let me see how to cancel this. I woke up today and they gave us a new version of Zoom, and I don't know all the tools here. I'm going to open this up for questions. I don't know how to say what.
I have a question.
Okay, just know that we're still recording on YouTube Live. I like to make sure you're aware of that for privacy reasons. Okay.
Yes, will we receive a copy of what you show us?
Yes, it's on YouTube Live. As you get offline, you just go to our Gov Directions channel. Okay, I'll show you real quick here. govdirections.com. Excuse me, at RFP or at Gov Directions, both of them have a link. And as you go here, okay, you click here, YouTube Live, it'll be there recorded for you. You can download it as well as watch it live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any questions today? Thank everybody for joining us. I do appreciate your time, and hopefully we've been able to share some knowledge with you. And hopefully you have a chance to talk with us. If you want to talk one-on-one, just go to our front page. It says let's Zoom or a demo, and choose the open discussion option. I'll be glad to chat with you one-on-one. Okay, this comes directly to me, and I'll work with you on that. Have a great afternoon.